Whenever you're ready, Lori.
Good morning. My name is Lori McDuff, and I'm a member of this wonderful congregation and also the treasurer. In November of 2022, I was introduced to this Unitarian community by Winnie. I had moved to James Bay a year after my husband suddenly died, and I was yearning for community. I found that community at Capitol. From the first time I attended a service, I was filled with a peaceful joy. Surrounded by all of you, I knew I had found my people. I was raised in an atheist home, and I've always thought of myself as a humanist, and I care deeply about our natural world and all the creatures on it. The Unitarian belief of the inclusiveness of all people is important to me. Unitarian Universalists claim a theological orientation that aspires to creativity, freedom, and compassion with respect to diversity and interconnectedness. Members seek spiritual growth and justice making through fellowship, personal experience, social action, and education. I love the structure of our weekly service and the beautiful music that Attila and Dick and Kathy create for us, the ritual of the introduction, the pebbles of care and concern, and the new homilies for each week that are things I look forward to. The service committee does an amazing job finding speakers, making the homily and our forum always so interesting to hear each speaker's opinions and queries. The socializing at monthly dinners and Sunday lunches are also wonderful. And both Amanda and John have so generously opened their homes to us for potlucks. I want our wonderful Capitol community to thrive through the considerable ingenuity I believe is in this community. We can find a way with the resourcefulness within each of us. Just like having a recent change of venue that has been a positive experience, putting us in a better financial position and less stress about our location, I believe we are going to find a way to carry on. Thank you.
I think there's a theme here. I keep hearing this word and I'm reading it on my page. I love this congregation. I've been coming to and delivering homilies to this congregation since arriving in Victoria 23 years ago. We first came here to Capitol because Alan and Elizabeth were our friends when we lived in Vancouver more than 30 years ago. I really appreciate the size of this congregation. I've come to love and look forward to the forum. I really appreciate the friendships that I have made here. I was delighted to join the board and have an opportunity to work alongside the members and Reverend Anne. For me, as many of you know, love is attention, acceptance, approval, allowing, and affection. My need for love has been very well met in this congregation. It is my hope that this community continues and that it thrives.
Thank you. I love Capitol Congregation. It is the Sangha, the sanctuary, the sacred space. It is the sheltering oak tree with deep roots and branches and leaves that filter out the sunshine and rain of adversity. We are not sinners. We do not need salvation, but we do need sanity. Sanity the ability to take skillful action by clear awareness of circumstances. And I'll talk more about the principles and sources later. But we are easily destabilized. After spending the summer barely coping with an unexpected family problem, like weird things that came up, coping by constantly cycling and swimming in the gorge, and contemplating existential dread with a fun friend of mine, it has been so nice to come back to Capital and the reassurance of pebbles, candles, music, homilies, and birthday songs. Capital Congregation is a place that supports my functioning as a happy and somewhat sane human being in this scary existence. Just some history, I was a Unitarian in Edmonton in the 90s when Brian Kiley was just starting out, and I even taught Unitarian Sunday school. So I learned a lot in teaching Sunday school modules, and now we don't have Sunday school, but it's still great. And so when I came to Victoria, I thought, I started out in the Quaker community, and then came here because of Sarah, and I found it was really a place where I could make friends and contribute in a way that I enjoyed. So thank you. So going back to sanity, so you know the Noble Eightfold Path, right action, right view, right, etc. And how does that play out? I think our principles and sources explain that in a way that's very practical. The principles include the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Yes, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning so that we can read anything, go anywhere, and see what's what. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence in which we are a part. That's really helpful because we're up against it in many ways in our environment. And there are a total of 8 principles and sources, but I'll just go on to some beautiful sources, which I think very inspiring, including direct experience. That is, what is your experience? And I personally do not experience a supernatural being who looks into my mind to tell me what I'm doing wrong. But I do experience, when I take unskillful actions, the world tells me quickly. So direct experience. Words and deeds are prophetic people and wisdom from world religions, humanist traditions, and earth-centered teachings. That's very helpful to take all the information you can get from these great sources and not just the Bible has the truth, and that's it. And what is the Bible anyway? Have you read it? Wow, okay. I find great value in these principles and sources. No need for that transcendent being. I also really appreciate the diversity of homilies in a lay-led congregation. You can get many voices and ideas. We explore truth and ideas and features of the human situation. I appreciate our team of Amanda, so caring and hardworking, Peter, so capable of pulling together these.
Struggle for that group.
Peter, so capable of putting together these services, 42 services a year, and Kathy, Dick, and Attila that provide rich, caring music and connection. In this most secular culture in Canada, this kind of religious organization can help us to carry on in a dark and difficult world. And I appreciate the friendliness I've found here, where I've been allowed to follow my thoughts and present homilies, which is very validating. I have made friends, which is wonderful, and I believe we can help each other. As a small congregation, we can't do everything, but we can do small things that show people care. I keep offering food to people, and they keep turning me down, so I have a vegetarian chili if anyone needs one. In conclusion, the inspiration and fellowship of Capital Unitarian Universalist Congregation are a great benefit to me and others, and I wish to contribute in any way possible to make sure we continue and thrive. Thank you. In
March of 2020, the early days of COVID, thinking back, our longtime friend Jan Greenwood told us about her small Unitarian congregation, which was continuing to provide Sunday services utilizing Zoom. We started attending online, and a little more than a year later, I was asked to take on the role of chair of the board on an interim basis. I must have done a reasonable job because I'm still in that position, at least until the next AGM.
Thank you, Heather.
Why do I continue my affiliation with a worship community hundreds of kilometers from my home in Salmon? Because I enjoy the variety of topics, different points of view that are presented every Sunday. I love the music and the songs that our amazing music team provides every week. I've made new friends, despite our infrequent visits here. As well, I find Capital a community that shows care for each individual. This is possible because we are a small group of people. I'm going to tell you a story which relates to the topic of today's talk and the forum to follow. In February of 2021, Mitch and I were traveling throughout New Zealand. We had a rented RV and we were driving back to Christchurch to return it. On the way, we decided to visit the historic town of Akaroa, which is an old French whaling station dating back to the early 1800s. As we reached the crest of a hill, the van started rocking from side to side. I think one of the tires is coming loose, Mitch said. We slowed to a stop and realized that it was not the vehicle, but the ground that continued to move. Turning on the radio, we heard the announcement. An earthquake has occurred in the capital region of South Island. We continued on to Akaroa, where the power was out and several buildings were closed due to structural damage. An evacuation centre had already been set up for those whose homes were unsafe. We headed to the campground where we were told to park our van without being able to check in due to no electricity to operate their computers. Throughout the afternoon, we experienced continuing aftershocks. The local pub restaurant had a generator, so they were able to cook simple meals for anyone who needed food. Everyone worked really hard to help those around them to feel okay and to get over this trauma that we had all experienced. The following day, we drove to the outskirts of Christchurch, where the RV company had told us to return the vehicle because their downtown location had been severely damaged. On the shuttle to the airport that they took us on, we were horrified by the devastation that we saw en route. Liquefaction had caused fine sand to rise up from the ground, and in many places it was piled up in mounds, so it was very difficult to maneuver the roads. As well, a lot of the streets had big cracks in them, where the ground had shifted quite radically. We saw very severely damaged buildings, including the cathedral. The airport was in chaos, as of course the airlines were trying to get people onto flights out of the country, and with no computers operating, everything had to be done manually. Another thing, there was no food or water available, as both the water and sewer systems had been damaged, and there was no electricity to operate them. We felt fortunate that we were able to leave without too much delay. When we returned there several years later, work was still ongoing to build New Zealand's second largest city, but it continues to rise from the ruins, creating a vibrant and exciting place to be. What does this have to do with Capital? Although not such a dire situation, our congregation has figuratively felt the ground shaking under our feet. We do have money in the bank, but our budget forecasts continue to show that our expenses rise, exceeding our income, so we can't continue on as before. We have neither the money or the people power to do so. However, like Christchurch, we can recover and rebuild a new version of Capital by working together. We just need to come up with a viable solution and focus our energies to achieve that. We need you, our congregation, to determine what it is we want and can realistically create as we move forward into the future. And now, Attila, if you play the meditation music.